All right, everybody. Welcome to the Creative Finance Collective. I'm Andy Fowler. We have Alan Seschker and Sean St. Clair here today. We're here to answer questions about creative finance. So if you have creative financing questions, make sure to post them in the chat. We'll be here as long as we get questions. And if we don't get questions, we'll be on as long as we can stand each other. And that's not very long. Um, Alan, how you been? It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, good. Had some family items to attend to, but missed you guys.
Yeah, well, family's more important than us. We understand.
Yeah.
So, um, all right. Well, we'll wait for other folks to join and ask some questions. I did think of something I thought might be interesting to ask you about. You guys are going to take this the wrong way. You're going to think I'm getting political, and I'm not. But I'm curious, since it's been proposed, I'm not arguing for the rightness or wrongness of the policy, but that it is now a possibility that a homeowner could have an extra $25,000 to put down on their first home. What do we think that's going to do to the creative finance market? We think it's going to change it. Do we think that's I know that there's big economic implications to a lot of these things, and the creative finance market survives with the idea that the interest rates are high, and investors are looking for mortgages that are at low interest rates that they can go acquire. What do we think that the $25,000 per homeowner might do to the real estate market? Does it bring it down and change things significantly? I don't know that it does anything to interest rates, but I do think it probably has some effect on the price of the homes, maybe. Alan, I know you must have thought about this at some point.
So we, we have a pretty good grassroots effort to go out there and educate end user buyers about their ability to get properties at substantially below current interest rates. And with that, prior to launching, I thought the buyers are going to be running in droves and just be eating this up, and interest rates anywhere between 4 and 5ish or so. That didn't happen, and so it caused me to rethink the slowdown of the market. The conventional market, the retail market, is not because of interest rates, in my opinion now. And so I have a little slide on my presentations. All right, well, is it if it's not interest rates, election? Is it geopolitical issues, World War III coming? What's the stock market going up and down? And so I've officially come to the conclusion I have no clue why the market is slow. Um, if you give people an extra 25 grand, are they now okay with 7% interest? I'm not.
Yeah, well, the interesting, I don't think giving new homeowners a bunch of money. Well, here's the one thing we know about that. That floods the system with a bunch of money, right? So we've added a bunch more money into the system. Not to everybody. We want to do that. Just to those who haven't bought a home, I guess, is what the policy would be. So $25,000 to them. That's a lot of money into the system. I think the question on prices, does it really materially change the supply of homes available? And I think if you were to ask, the average homeowner who doesn't get that benefit, right? They don't get the 25,000 because that's for a first-time home buyer. So the average home owner now has to face, okay, well, is that enough incentive for me to go put my house on the market? Well, I'm going to have to go buy something that's already way more expensive than what I bought, one, and I'm going to have to flip into a higher interest rate, two. Is that enough of an incentive to do that? I doubt it. So it seems to me that your supply is still constrained. Now, who wins in this? The new home builders will love that, right? I would think the new home building industry would love that. So you'd get a lot of that, but I don't. That supply is already there. I mean, I guess maybe what you would get is now new home builders. In fact, Alan, I think we were talking about this last week. there was a big home builder in Phoenix that was offering like a step up interest rate. First year it's like 1%, second year's 2, 3, and then it works its way into like a 4% something loan. Builders are having to get creative to do these seller financing to get people to buy it. But that supply is already there. I don't really know that changes the housing supply in the market that much. And if we've learned anything, geez, by now every United States citizen should be an expert on inflation. If we've learned anything over the past 2 years, you flood the system with money, and supply is constrained, prices go up, inflation goes up, numbers go up, right? It seems to me that the only direction for home prices in that scenario is up. I
Yeah.
don't know. Did any of that make sense? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think it's going to incentivize. However, I mean, goofy stuff happens. We have a pandemic and everyone says, I want a car and a house. So I officially can say I don't know. Any opinion that I espouse, I would say you can't trust it. But I don't think it's going to cause a buying frenzy.
Yeah. No, well, and even if it does, in this, all it's going to do, it would seem to me, is exacerbate housing affordability problems. It does not fix housing affordability, which I think is kind of the big problem everybody faces. Interest rates are
Yeah.
high in relation to where they were, but over decades, they're not that high. The difference is that usually when we have a recession or some sort of change in the market, we get high interest rates and we get rewarded. Sounds weird to call it a reward, but you get rewarded with a major price correction. Well, you didn't get that this time. No price correction. In fact, the price goes up. It just is also more costly to borrow. Um,
I
so
mean, you, I think everyone's timid. I think everyone's uh, concerned, confused, don't know. We don't know what tomorrow is, and so I think everyone's just sitting down. You've got big giant corporate layoffs. Um, people, people's hamburgers are costing more money. I just think everyone's sitting.
yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, the market, and by market I mean the people spending the money. They like certainty, right?
Yeah,
That's how people make big financial decisions, when they know how the game is played and what to expect. And I think you got a lot of people, like you said, sitting thinking, well, okay, I saw in the news that the Fed didn't up the interest rates this quarter, and they might be cutting next quarter. Maybe we're in a cutting cycle. Maybe that's coming. Maybe what does that mean? Maybe some people think that means zero rates again. It probably doesn't mean anywhere close to that. But yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people are just sitting, and they don't know. They don't know what they know. I think, more broadly speaking, for the creative finance market, boy, I just don't think the dynamics are changing anytime soon.
no.
Um, you're going to, even if the interest rates come down, this is the other interesting thing. If they come down, I'd be shocked, but I don't think they're coming down to rates that we saw before. So you're still going to have tons and tons of borrowers in the position of, well, if I leave my house, I got to flip it into something more expensive.
Yeah.
And if the conditions that they've created, uh, that have caused housing affordability, just continue to manifest and continue, then you've got high borrowing costs and expensive assets, expensive real estate. And in that world, creative finance is it. What else do you have?
Well, and didn't Jeff Ward say that the cuts are going to be point 0.1, and so over the course of I think 18 months we're going to end up with 0.3 or 0.4% down, and that's not what people are looking for. They're looking for that 4.9. I think is a magic number. And like you said, we are at our 30-year average, approximately below the 30-year average for interest rate. I don't think point one here and point one there is going to do anything for the market.
I didn't realize we're below the 30-year average. That's interesting. That really just puts it into perspective for you, though, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
when people claim that it's, outrageously high, it's like, well, yeah, not really.
yeah. Well, to me, it causes me concern 25, 30 years ago, at 17%.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. But, all those other times you were rewarded with a price correction, so people had the option of getting in at better prices, not so now. In any event, interesting. Doesn't sound like you're holding your breath and all excited for the $25,000 a person then. You don't
No,
think it's going
I
to
was
change the
talking with.
world?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But again, weird things do happen. I was talking with the owner of a very large title office here in Austin, and he only does 100% conventional, no creative anything, and said it's just it's very, very slow. Um, I don't think that's corrected by first time home buyer 25,000 kind of deal.
Now, I think you said this, but you said this guy you're talking with is like a conventional.
Yeah, his title. Well, he his claim to fame, I guess, is getting the big giant commercial deals. Elon Musk type things,
Yeah.
and then luxury residential, higher residential stuff. So zero creative. I don't think he probably can't spell rap, which is good during the good time for him. But it's just I think it's too slow.
Yeah. Well, my understanding of the conventional like refi home loan market, that's been decimated. Like refis are not getting done or
Yeah.
barely happening, I think. And outside of, just home purchases, I don't think there's not a lot going on. Well, have you on the creative finance side of things? We haven't really had this discussion in a while. Have you been busy? Have you seen a slowdown? What's it been like in Texas?
So for us, it's very busy. I've got to do my knock on wood. Um, I have a round table I sit with about 7 or 8 owners of attorney-owned title offices, and none of them are as embedded in the creative stuff as I am. And I asked, unfortunately, how's y'all's volume? And went around the table everywhere between 30 and 50% down, and then it got to me, and I was kind of sheepish. And we're up 15%. So the creative stuff is it's
Booming.
carrying us. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, that alone should tell you how busy you are on these things should tell you where the market's at and what the conditions are. It just given the proposals that everybody's offering and the economic conditions, it just doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. If you're an
Now,
investor anyway.
I think we're going to need multiple changes in the market for a substantive change.
Yeah. Yeah. We might be in it for the long haul. Hey, when we were talking offline, you were talking about that dirty word novations. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I do, and I'll preface it with I'm not talking about them because I like them per se. They do have their benefits. If you want to be able to market to end user conventional borrowing buyers, then they help versus a wholesale or assignment. If you want to list the property, then a novation can help you versus a wholesale. But what I see them being used as is these equity partnering deals where investor comes in, is going to make ready the house so it can now be sold to a end buyer that has a lender, can get an appraisal, can maximize the sale price. But I don't like them being used for that. And the reason I bring it up is someone's forcing me to change my novation document so it can be used for that purpose. And just wanted y'all's opinion on that type of use of it.
Have you seen it used that way, Sean?
I have. I've not been involved in the use that way, or try not to be involved in the use that way, because, to allow somebody to basically go on the property, make repairs, improvements, have possession, without any real formal documentation of that, I think is problematic, both from the buyer side and the seller side. I mean, you have the buyer going on making these improvements, and what happens when the seller, says no, or the seller dies, or something happens, and all of a sudden now they've, or seller files for bankruptcy. I mean, that's a real thing. What happens now to those improvements and stuff like that. And then from the seller side, what happens if a contractor's not paid and there's a mechanics lien, or somebody injures themselves on the property, or the work is defective, or that gets halfway done and then the buyer absconds and doesn't complete the job, and now the house is worth less than when they entered into the contract. There's a number of issues there doing it that way. One thing, and this probably doesn't work in Texas, but maybe it does. One thing that we've talked about, or had an interview with an attorney out of South Carolina, because South Carolina just banned wholesaling, basically. Not only wholesaling, but double escrows, novations, like it's all out. The way they crafted the statute, it's gone. Like you just can't do it. And so his thing is what he calls the installment method, where he basically does a 60-day, 90, 30, whatever, basically a short-term land contract, whereby, the property is basically conveyed for that shortened period with basically a buyout number at the end of the 60 days. So that's kind of your purchase price. And so then you record in our state, in Arizona, it's agreement for sale, Wisconsin land contract, I think. In South Carolina, they call it installment. There's all these names, contract for deed, all that. But basically you record it, and now you are a record owner of that property. You just don't have title because it's staying with the seller to secure your performance. But you have the right to possess, to improve, to repair, to maintain, to insure, to basically treat it as your own. In my mind, or in my view, novation shouldn't even be done anymore. You should do basically this installment method, because then you can list the property yourself on the MLS. You don't need a POA. You're the seller. You have a property interest. You can list it on the MLS. You can enter into a direct contract with a purchaser. Basically what you would do is you would do the land contract, and then you would execute separate escrow instructions. And those escrow instructions would be delivered to, say, your office, Alan. And it would say, if the closing does happen under this land contract, Alan, your office will handle it. And here is the original warranty deed, and here's a cancellation. And if the buyer's going to perform, or the purchaser's going to perform, then you are authorized as the escrow agent to record the warranty deed. If the purchaser fails to perform, then you as the escrow agent can record the cancellation. So everyone's protected. You have the original documents, and you can record them accordingly. So if I then am the purchaser and I go out and find an end buyer for the property, then we just put that new contract into escrow with you. And from there, you have the warranty deed from the seller to fulfill the performance under the land contract. And we just process the escrow, and it closes. First, you record the warranty deed from the original seller to the purchaser in the land contract, and then the purchaser in the land contract gives the warranty deed there. To me, that should 100% replace novations. Now, with Texas, I know there's special rules and stuff on that, because
we have 180 days that we can do that.
Yeah, I would do that all day long. I wouldn't even do novations.
I think you just now created my new ebook.
Yeah,
No,
why
that's
do novations?
that's far superior. I was concerned because there wouldn't be title insurance. You could do a title search, I guess, but there wouldn't be title insurance on a contract for deed. But we're only using the contract for deed as the equivalent tool as a novation. So you can go out there and do this, this, and this, and find a real end buyer.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I'm certainly glad I joined today.
We actually, when was that, Sean? We had
Yeah, 3 weeks ago, I think we interviewed the attorney out
Pickren.
of South Carolina is Gary Pickren.
Yeah.
Super
That's right.
smart guy. And he kind of went through it and talked about, not in detail, because of course he has kind of his course and stuff that he wants people to go through. But, that's kind of the concept. And I love it. I think it's like, why do novations? Now, do you guys have like transfer fees or anything in Texas?
No.
Okay, transfer tax. Yeah, that's where the land contract thing, in lieu of novations, kind of can cause some issues if you're having to pay a big transfer tax or fee to record. But otherwise, it gets recorded and the purchaser has full rights to the property.
So,
yeah, and he went in. Go ahead.
Well, when I record that contract for deed, and it has contingencies that are left out there that need to be completed in order for the contract for deed to be completed and have a vested owner. If you have the contract for deed, does that allow you to go get it on the MLS and advertise and sell that property?
Yeah, because a contract for deed means you are the owner of the property for all intents and purposes. The security remains the warranty deed remains with the seller solely to secure your performance under that contract. It's like if you buy a car and you buy it on financing and you deliver the title to the lender and the lender holds the title to make sure you perform, but for all intents and purposes, the car is yours and you can insure it, you can drive it, possess it, do whatever you want with it. It's the same concept with a land contract or a contract for deed.
Does it violate the due on sale clause?
It can, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but you're talking 60, 90 days, like, is a lender really going to call it due at that point?
Huh. And that's better than an assumption acquisition and then go out and seller finance disposition or any kind of exit strategy. It's better because it protects both sides, like you were talking about.
Yeah, it basically creates the relationship you're wanting to create with a novation purchase contract, but it actually legally creates the relationship instead of creating some fiction, type of thing with pre-possession and that type of thing. And now and you can insure it as the purchaser. You can insure it. You can keep the seller's insurance in place, because at that point, because they still are the record title holder, they still have an insurable interest against the in the property. So they can still be the primary insured, but you can get your own insurance as the purchaser if you want. You can leave the seller in possession if you want. And then what you would do is build into the land contract a provision that says seller remains in possession. And in consideration for continuing to possess the property, even after recording of this document, seller is going to pay the mortgage payments on the property and utilities and blah, 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 blah. And so you would build that in. And so that would be kind of like their lease payment, or what the seller's responsibilities are. Or if the seller moves out, then you have to decide, okay, who pays the mortgage for the next, 60 days or whatever. And that would have to be figured out.
And then in the contract for deed, it says upon subsequent sale, seller gets X dollars.
Yes. Yeah. So, right. That's the contract for deed, right? It's an installment. So it would say buyer, provides an initial down payment of whatever the earnest money would be, but it's an actual down payment. They provide a down payment, and then the final purchase price is, say, $250,000 as a balloon payment in 60 days. You could even build in, extension payments or rights or whatever, but with a balloon payment in 60 days of $250,000, and then as long as buyer brings that money to the table, then they've performed, and you as the escrow agent can record the warranty deed. You don't even need the seller's cooperation any further, because the contract says exactly what to bring in, and then you just mail a check or wire the funds to the seller and record the warranty deed, and away your purchaser goes to sell it to somebody else.
Yeah.
You don't even need the double escrow, anymore.
I think that's far superior than a novation.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Huh.
So we did elicit a question from a YouTube listener, and they want to know, so when is it appropriate to use a novation? We're talking about a particular case, but a novation is not like, it's not like something a YouTube person just came up with and it's a new thing. A novation's been a legal concept for some time. It is a thing. Is there an appropriate use case for the novation, and what is it?
Well, I assume they're saying when in a real estate transaction, or what type of real estate transaction?
I think so. I mean, I think is there an appropriate time to be using a novation, and when is it?
And there is, I think, in the case that I'm being forced to do the equity partnering novation, they're worried about seasoning issue. So the 90-day seasoning, they don't want to have to wrestle with that. I think the contract for deed solution and the subto acquisition solution is not good. So novation would be good in a seasoning issue.
I agree. However, you could still pull that off in a contract for deed scenario. But what you would have to do is you would have to have seller cooperation. So if you had a seasoning issue, you would go to the seller and be like, hey, I can't exit out of this thing because the buyer is getting blah, 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 blah. They're getting this type of financing. So I'll tell you what, why don't we cancel the contract for deed effective upon your closing with this end buyer? You sign a contract with the end buyer, and then, here's my cancellation fee is the difference between the two minus, certain costs and whatever. And then you would basically novate, instead of novating a purchase contract, you would novate the contract for deed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the seller would enter into the contract with the end buyer that was identified. But what's nice is you're not having to worry about the whole MLS, POA type listing stuff, attorney in fact. You found the end buyer just won't work because, you've not been vested long enough. But if you, as the purchaser under the contract for deed, hold it for the 90 days, you can talk to a lender, but I believe that's sufficient to make the seasoning requirements.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm racking my brain to see a situation where novation is a superior option for us.
What about in just outside of the fact pattern you presented, Alan? Is there a conventional, or are there other use cases where you see it as, okay, when it's done this way, this is the novation is the appropriate workaround?
In Texas, if for some reason you're extending longer than 180 days, can't do our contract for deed. I don't use the power of attorney or attorney in fact on my novation paperwork. We have agent getting into a listing agreement with seller, and seller inside that document is going ahead and advising the agent to take instruction from the novator.
That's cool.
And so the novator's not actually signing for the seller at any point. I don't like those the buyers signing on behalf of seller for a contract, sometimes even with buyer.
Right.
That's just no. So I can't think of a reason that the contract for deed wouldn't be a better solution than the novation.
You could have a situation where you're going to just straight wholesale, or that was your plan. And so you have a purchase contract, but you found somebody who wants to buy it with end user financing, conventional financing, and you're not going to be able to do the wholesale deal that way. You could go back to the seller and do a, post-purchase contract novation, because all a novation means legally, right, is a replacement contract.
Yeah.
So you could go, in that case, you didn't plan on a novation, it just happened, and now you're going back to the seller and like, hey, I can close this thing, but this purchaser needs to use this type of financing. I'm going to just put you guys together, execute a contract, and I'm going to have an addendum that says what I get paid from the whole thing to cancel.
Yeah, if lender or title office isn't allowing the assignment, I can see that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, guys, that's all of our questions. We probably need to give Alan some time to go back and watch our episode. He sounds intrigued.
I actually am quite a bit. It solves my problems with these novation things, and hopefully the investors will see the superiority of it also.
Well, it was definitely fascinating to see how things played out in South Carolina. And our guest, he's on the real estate commission there. So, had a lot of good information about the law, what he thought it could do, what it couldn't do. And it was very interesting. So, well, guys, that's all the questions we got. Unless there's something another legal conundrum you want to beat to death, we'll kill it and let everybody go.
Are y'all messing with agents struggling with the NAR settlement issues and how we're handling buyer commissions and such?
I have not really had to dive into it, but I am curious to see how it's going to play out with the negotiations. Right now, here's the thing, right? I mean, I'll tell you right now, like you said, Alan, if the market's slow, sellers are going to be offering to pay the buyer's commissions all day long, and it's never going to be an issue. If the market heats up, things are going to get really interesting. Good thing the government's giving first-time home buyers $25,000, because I think at least half of it's going to agent commissions.
Oh, that's funny.
But if the market picks up and it becomes a real heavy sellers market, sellers are going to be like, no, you pay your own agent. And these buyers, some of these buyers aren't going to have money to do that. And NAR did not go, they've not gone to the feds, who were the ones pursuing a lot of this, the DOJ, and said, hey, look, okay, if we're going to do this, let's carve out some exceptions to lending regs, because honestly, my opinion is what they should have done is carved out a quick exception to the lending regs, which basically says that an agent can get paid either upon cash at close or through an installment, evidenced by a promissory note and secured by a mortgage or deed of trust against the property that they assisted with the sale. And, at 0% interest or 2% interest or whatever, some, provision that allows the agent to then, say, okay, you don't have the money, that's fine, pay me $500 a month, type of thing. And most buyers could do that. And then that would allow also the agent to be able to, basically sell that note and get some cash. They would sell it for less than the full amount, but get some immediate cash. And then you would have another market where people are grabbing these notes and just, waiting for the installment payments to come in. But, that's not what happened. And now basically the buyer has to throw down a large chunk of change if they can't get the seller to pay for their commission. I mean, what have you seen? Is that seem consistent with what you've been seeing so far?
Sellers are paying their 3%.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because the market's slowed down.
Because of the market. Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to watch what happens. I think it'll settle out to where it is a negotiated item and commissions are lower, which will, hurt agents.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting because I think if it gets to a point where you put the property on the market and you have 5 contracts over the weekend, like we've seen, back in 2022, late 2020, like why would you ever agree to pay the buyer's commission if you're the seller in that case?
I believe the courts agree with you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was the whole basis of the case, right? The seller shouldn't have to. So now that will be interesting. And frankly, the buyer who has the resources is going to win overall in that type of bidding war, unfortunately.
Yeah. So instead of asking price, offer price well above asking price is going to be, and I'm paying my own commissions.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, cash will be even more of more king. It'll be even higher value,
Yeah.
So.
Well, we'll watch.
Well, before we go, somebody threw out something here for you, Alan. It said, I had the opportunity to assist with a novation as a realtor, and it was a great experience with the Sesker team.
Oh, well, good. Yep.
Plug for you guys. That was from Ivan Martinez.
Well, I appreciate that. There's 2 folks that all they do is novations. It's all they do.
Yeah.
And so I do have to give them credit because they have a pretty good system in place, and they know what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks, Ivan.
Good job, Alan. I think you Texas guys have more fans on this thing than Sean or I do.
Well, no, I just text them while I'm on and say, hey, jump on and say thanks.
Yeah. Hey, could you?
That's good. Yeah, that's smart.
Could you throw me a bone? That's funny. Oh, well, good. Well, that's all our questions. Let's go ahead and call it and go be with your family, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Good seeing y'all, guys.
All right. See you.